I've been talking about. I'll say I've been talking about this for a little bit now, and sometimes you wonder. Sometimes you have this feeling about things, but it's really hard to maybe pinpoint down and really to point at something when you have this feeling to kind of maybe to be like conspiracy theories or what you think are propaganda or what you think is something else, and it's hard to put a finger on it sometimes if you just kind of feel something. But I think this past week at Backlash, we actually got to see it kind of realistically come to play, where it was really, and I saw it all over social media, where it was kind of undeniable. And listen, I understand, hey, Walmart, the WWE, the NFL, Nike, they're all big-time businesses, right? Their goals are being businesses and being very successful businesses. There's no doubt about that, right? But one thing those other ones don't do that WWE did do this past week in the middle of the ring during the pay-per-view was tell the fans in the middle of the ring that they made the largest gate in not just SmackDown history, but in WWE Arena history as well. So both SmackDown and for a WWE Arena show. And where obviously people started to kind of put it together, because we talked before how people get convoluted, as in, for example, when they say this, everyone's popping, everyone's getting excited. But it's not, as somebody put it, the people who should be popping there are the investors. That's not for the fans. When Walmart comes out at the quarterly meetings and say, we are all billionaires, the customers don't throw their bread up in the air, when they hear it over the loudspeaker, go, yeah, that's not for them. They're not a part of that. They're not in that inner circle, right? When all the principals at a high school get together and go, we just settled our contract negotiations, we're all going to make $200,000 this year from $150,000. The students don't all come in and cheer them on. They've got nothing to do with that. They're not a part of that. That's not their thing, right? They might contribute to it, and in the sense of being part of the customer base, if you will, but it's not something that they get to celebrate. They get any of the fruits of the labor, if you will. Right. And where that really came to a head is the fact that this pay-per-view this past weekend was the second lowest attended pay-per-view event since the end of the pandemic, and the lowest pay-per-view attended event since Backlash of 2022, which was in Providence, Rhode Island. So in the last, 36 pay-per-views that WWE has held, this would fall 35 when it comes to attendance, which is fine to do. But that kind of obviously put the fans in perspective, like, hey, this is 35th place of pay-per-views out of 36. You've had WrestleMania at Madison Square Garden in front of 20,000 people. You just had SmackDown less than a month ago in front of 20,000, a full Wells Fargo Center in Philadelphia, and this 11,000 people made you more money. Which here's the thing: all you're telling us, which if they don't want to necessarily say it out loud, they're just saying, hey, we made more money, is obviously that the ticket prices were absolutely absurd, right? And luckily, so far since then, SummerSlam tickets have gone on sale, and while they're very, very expensive, they haven't necessarily crossed over into what we saw with SmackDown and Backlash. And what I mean by that is tickets to get into Backlash were upwards of $500 to get in the door. And I understand that you like this Backlash card. It was a good pay-per-view. Backlash last year was good. WWE overall, the B shows are good. The A shows are good. Everything is good. It's everything presented in the right way, right? But there was no conflating this Backlash to be WrestleMania. There was no making this Backlash to be the biggest WWE pay-per-view of the last 20 years, right? So the price was, hey, we don't come here that much, like you're saying. Let's charge this absurd amount of money. And they're doing that with Clash at the Castle, and a few people are they haven't sold out as quick at Clash at the Castle. They still have a couple thousand seats left because the get-in price is like $400.
I was just going to say, I want to give a shout-out to my guy Paul, my buddy Paul Stewart out, and he's a good friend of mine. We've known each other for a few years. We covered the Cowboys together for a recent publication that I used to work for, and we stay in touch. Him and I bonded over the Cowboys, but he's a big wrestling fan as well, and he actually lives in Glasgow, Scotland. He's a Scottish guy, and he tweeted this out just yesterday. He said, and you just mentioned it. He said single ticket prices for WWE Clash at the Castle starting roughly $300 EU, which is $400 approximately dollars for seats in the way back. And then if you want a third row seat from the ring, it's about $3,000 or 2,200 euros. And of course at the end of it he goes beyond a freaking joke. And that's the thing. And shout out to my boy. You can follow him on IMP Stu. He's a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
But he makes
This
a good
isn't
point.
StubHub, and this isn't StubHub. Listen, WWE doesn't have any control over secondary market people charging. This is WWE themselves. This is WWE going up to a family of 4 and saying, "Hey, we're coming to your town for a pay-per-view. Sorry, it's not for you. You can't come." Right? It doesn't matter if you wait in line. I get it when things sell out. That's great. Sellouts. See, that's the thing. People are conflating these numbers to sellouts and that whole camaraderie of being a part of something. WWE isn't coming out and saying, "We sold this arena out. Thank you, France." They're saying, "We fleeced you for a ton of money. Thank you. We charged you like beyond WrestleMania prices for a Backlash event where there's no Rock, there's no Roman, there's no Seth Rollins, there's no John Cena, there's no celebrity appearances, there's none of that stuff. We charged you." And I'll just say this much. So I recently, as of today, actually just got my SummerSlam tickets. They're more than I want to pay. I ended up, it was $200 for a seat, right? But you can get in the door for what was about $80. There's still, and StubHub and stuff has got those still available, and the cheap ones kind of, but about between $50 and $80 is like a get-in price. And I understand that's a stadium and you're going to be pretty far away, but that's essentially a affordable. If you want to attend this event, you can get in there, and they still, because it's a stadium, probably have more tickets available. And I would have waited out. The person who was buying my ticket wanted to get the better seats, so we have like 100 level seats for $200.
I think we know who that is.
Yeah. So I was all about waiting out the one for $100 seats, right? And listen, if you're doing such great business, you should just be able to charge regular prices, sell the place out, right? And make a good, tidy profit.
Here's the thing, though. I'm gonna play devil's advocate, and here's the thing. I do agree with you because, full disclosure, the tickets to me are a little outlandish right now, and that's the reason why. Part of the reason why I'm not going, because it's just, to me at this stage of the game, I'm like, Let me
ask you this. You said this was a great card, right? We talked. You said, "Hey, it had a big fight feel." I give you a $600 gift card to be used for WWE tickets in any way possible. You can mix and match all you want. You can have good seats for 6 house shows. You can have okay seats for both nights of WrestleMania. You can have like nosebleed seats for Royal Rumble, Elimination Chamber, and both nights of WrestleMania. Or you can have just regular, the get-in price seats for Backlash. What would Backlash be your priority here, or would you obviously be going towards those other routes?
I go the other way, of course. I go the other way because I'd want more, because somebody who's
more bang for your buck. Yeah,
bang for my buck, and to that point, and that's the thing, and that's for me, it's like I budget things differently personally than maybe some people do. I work in the finance realm, so like my brain works in a different way than the normal people do, the normal public. So like when I saw the prices, I'm like, okay, I have other things that I got to do, so I have to adult. So I can't. So it's like I as much as I want to go, Cleveland's not that far from where we are in Syracuse. It's like, well, I got to choose between different things, and I'm like, well, you know what? Unfortunately, it's like it's close, but price-wise,
it's close enough that your decision doesn't have to be made today, right?
That's a valid point. I haven't crossed that bridge yet.
But I guess here's going away from the financial side of things in this, right?
Real quick, though. There's one last point. Just to play devil's advocate. This is my last point on the financial side. So WWE obviously charges to come to certain places. Like they pay, like Puerto Rico last year paid a boatload of money, and the Saudi Arabian folks, in Riyadh, they pay a boatload of money to get them there. So I think, you can't put all the heat on WWE, because what the French government is also doing is, hey, we're doling out all this money to bring WWE here. We want you to pay higher tickets so we can recoup some of our money.
Well, no, I don't think they get any of the money. WWE, that's why it's hard to play devil's advocate there, because they're getting both the money from the government and the ticket sales. The government is paying for the tourism dollars that come into their city. The government is paying for the fact that their businesses will be better attended, the restaurants, the hotels, the rental cars, the taxis. That's why people want WrestleMania. That's why people want to. So Philadelphia brought in over $200 million, and so did LA the year before for WrestleMania, and that's why they're paying, because the hotel money they get, the taxi money, the subway system money, the restaurants do a record business. Right, all of that tourism. I spent money at the Dollar Tree, the Walmart, the Target, the Kmart, all those places. That's what they are paying WWE. WWE keeps all the ticket money. WWE keeps all of the money that they obviously get paid. The only thing that WWE, I think, and I don't know the rental fee for the facility itself. They might have to pay to rent the facility, which the city might get back in the sense. But they're looking at the tourism dollars. They're looking to pay WWE because they want the $200 million coming into their city everywhere else.
I guess my point is though, like WWE knows they have a hot ticket. Like they know they're hot right now, and these places.
Again, that's fine. My issue with all of this, though, is that WWE, right? They've always did conference calls. They always do their quarterly earnings thing with the stockholders and the financial people. It is just kind of disingenuous. And I know you're a big football person, right? What if Roger Goodell, the commissioner of the NFL, right, came out after the Super Bowl was over and said, or actually, here's a better one. I'll do this one. This is more personal, right? So we're a playoff game, NFC Championship game, the Cowboys Stadium. The Cowboys are down 42-0 at halftime, so it's clear that this is the end of the road. We haven't played the second half yet. This is the end of the road, right? They made it to the NFC Championship game, and the season's going to end in 2 quarters. And Jerry Jones at halftime of that game comes out and says, I just want to thank all the fans here. This was the most successful season of Dallas Cowboy football we have ever had. There has never been a better Dallas Cowboy season in the history of the franchise.
He does it.
And you'd go, well, not record-wise, of course. No, I just made more money because because you guys all charged me. I charge you all for more tickets. Tickets this year cost way more money. So financially, this has been the best season for me. Yeah, we didn't win a Super Bowl or any of that stuff. I'll just
tell you this, as someone who's been fortunate enough to cover the Cowboys and has been a lifelong fan, everything you said happens every single year. Because Jerry Jones, not to get too far off of that, but Jerry Jones is more about the brand than putting together necessarily a team that's going to win 13 games a year. It's a brand thing. That's what it is, and I'm okay with it because the team's still good. But that's what it is. So when you say that, that wouldn't surprise me with Jerry Jones because Jerry Jones likes to make money. So I get it.
If Triple H wanted to say this was the best WrestleMania of all time after that because he thought it was a great card and the fans loved it, that's great. But I guess this whole thing of just basing the success that we share with their financial windfall, like I said, great that you made all that money. Kind of keep that a little bit to yourselves because we're not seeing, we don't see the fruits of that, right? What do we get out of that?
Well, actually,
they're cutting back on pyro, right? Obviously, we're seeing situations where they're cutting down on the side of the stage, even when it doesn't matter. Meaning, this week I'm going to be in Scranton, Wilkes-Barre. They'll have the small stage. They're not fitting any more people in there because the stage is against a wall, right? So that stage could be 100 feet tall. It could be 10 feet tall. It's not blocking any seats. It's just saving them money on a tractor trailer that delivers that, right?
Here's what I'll say though, because and I have to play devil's advocate. Being in the when you cite certain things, you kind of come off as a goofball. But being in the area of business that I've been in for as long as I have, what I will say to all that is the cost of keeping wrestlers and talent as a whole. It's getting more expensive because there's so many opportunities. AEW's paying really good money for wrestlers. TNA's paying good money. New Japan's paying good money. So there's a lot of competition for a lot of wrestlers. And what WWE has done in recent weeks, they've signed Drew McIntyre to a very lucrative contract. They've signed Seth Rollins to a lucrative contract, which also tells me if Seth Rollins has signed a lucrative contract, Becky's probably either close to it or she's quietly re-upped her contract. And they're not small contracts. So my thing is, when you're making as much money as they are, it's not necessarily going in their pockets because they have to also pay their talent. They got to pay the crew. So everybody's getting a cut. And here's the thing. That's where it falls back because if you're not able to, quote unquote, pay for the higher talents, you're actually going to make a lesser product.
I do think a lot of this has to do, obviously, with the current ownership. All right, we all thought, this would be better. Not necessarily, getting Vince McMahon out the door. I don't know if we know back in the day when they made the purchase if we thought this would necessarily be better at that time. But the whole idea of Triple H being in charge versus Vince McMahon. But this is part of it. This is part of TKO ownership, right? They are a business, right? They're not just we like wrestling and if we can make money, that's great. Like at the same time, they're 100% from the financial side of things. They are the fanatics as we see in the MLB world, right? And that's why they've teamed with fanatics, right? How can we make the
Fanatics is buying up everything. Fanatics
Yeah,
is buying
how
up
can
every
we make
sport.
things cheaper and charge more for it? But I will say, I'll finish up on this point. It's not necessarily a financial thing, but it's one of those, again, disingenuous. And I used to be a huge Triple H guy. And last year I went to SmackDown, and you can see me on TV bowing down to Triple H. But here is some issues that I have right now because he's the spokesman for this company. During the Backlash press conference, he said, that Nick Khan texted him, right, and said stadium question mark, right, and in a lot of this other stuff, he is talking about, well, we're feeling out the crowd, and we've talked about that before. Oh, we're just trying to see the interest. The WWE has traveled the world extensively for the last 40 years, right? We know the interest. That pay-per-view event wasn't even the most attended or even close to the most attended event on the tour they were on when they had house shows in Italy that were drawing 16,000 people. So it wasn't a shock to anybody that the O2 Arena sold out last year for Money in the Bank because it sells out for house shows, right? These aren't their first trips there. It's not even their first quote-unquote TV shows there. But where it's disingenuous is the idea that he is putting it out there that these ideas of where we go, where WWE is attending shows, is 100% based on the fans. If you turn out, we'll turn out, that kind of thing. And it's based on more or less who's going to pay for them to come. It isn't a coincidence or a weird thought. They went to the third largest city in France. The first ever pay-per-view event in the country of France was not in Paris. If a company came here and their first ever pay-per-view event in the United States was Des Moines, Iowa, there was probably a really specific reason why it was not New York, LA, or Chicago, right? So the fact that this big pay-per-view wasn't in Paris, it's because Paris says, hey, we don't need the tourism. We're doing pretty well in the tourism field. So we're not going to necessarily pay you top dollar. And WWE and Nick Khan even came forth and said this week about WrestleMania coming to London, right? And they didn't sugarcoat this answer like they have in the past. And they specifically said, yeah, we'd be open to coming to London if we can agree on a price. Not we'd be open to coming to London based on the time of day, the logistics, the fan interest, but if we can agree on what you're going to do. So when it comes to this Saudi Arabia stuff and bringing WWE in, and that's, why they're in Saudi Arabia, that's why they are everywhere. Exception of a few Raws and SmackDowns nowadays, that is why they're everywhere. So when fans out there, when Triple H says stadium question mark, this isn't Triple H and Nick Khan going together saying, let's book a stadium. This is maybe Nick Khan and Triple H coming to Paris and coming to this place and saying, would you be interested in us coming for a stadium if you pay us a good amount of money? Because if not, we're not coming for a stadium. They're going to Glasgow, not Edinburgh, because that's what's paying them to go there. They went to Lyon because that's who paid them to go there. They're going to all Berlin because that's who's paying them to go there. So they put it out there like, hey, if the Scottish fans show up, we'll come back. No, if the Scottish government pays for you to come back, because we saw last year with Backlash in Puerto Rico, great crowd, 18,000, sold out building. They went crazy for it, right? They loved it. One of the better crowds of the year, right? They haven't come back to Puerto Rico, though, for even a Raw because they haven't been paid to come back. So it's not just...
Well, it's a business. First and foremost,
then coming out and being disingenuous and pretty much Triple H being like, well, if the fans want us to come back, we'll come back. Don't lie to us like that. If the government pays for you to come back, you'll come back, right? You're not going to Saudi Arabia because the fans are loving it. You're going to Saudi Arabia because you're being paid to go to Saudi Arabia.
We all know that, though. I don't think it's disingenuous in my opinion.
When he says things like stadium question mark, meaning like, hey, we're feeling out Lyon, France, and we saw we got a good crowd. Maybe we'll come back for a stadium. You'll come back for a stadium tomorrow if they paid you to come back for a stadium. It had nothing to do with the fans, right? It had to do with
business, dude.
Yeah.
I don't think it's you know what, here's the thing. I appreciate their candor about it because to me it would come off more disingenuous if they were if they were just blowing smoke. They're not blowing smoke. It's clearly obvious. It's like, and you just
they are blowing smoke when Triple H says we're going to France and hey, we're going to go anywhere that the fans want us to go. You're going to go anywhere that the government wants you to go. Maybe the fans dictate the government and it's a snowball effect, but you're pretty much putting this into the hands of, hey, the Germany's fans really want WWE, so we're coming to Germany.
The government's asked though, like, hey, would you want if we charged you X amount of dollars to and say next year, the enough each person, based on whatever, puts up an extra few bucks on their taxes or however they do it over there. I don't know how they do it there, but if they drop
the same idea, tourism tax, yes. I guess the idea though, right? So if Backlash got 11,000 people, like I said, one of the lower attended pay-per-view events in the last couple of years, it's a smaller arena. What can you expect? And that kind of shows you too, right? That they were going to where they're being paid to go to, right? We see that right now with Saudi Arabia. Sometimes they don't sell out those shows. There's lots of seats available, right? At even a low ticket amount, but they still keep coming back there. So this whole idea of if you show up, we'll show up. I promise you, if they got 5,000 people at Backlash and they put everybody on the TV side only, but that Lyon, France said, hey, next year come back for Backlash. We got another whatever 20 million in it for you. They'd be right back there.
Of course they will.
And
It's funny.
if London says we'll sell out the O2 Arena, and they say, well, Lyon, France is going to give us this money. What are you going to give us? And they say, well, we'll just give you a sold out arena of crazy wrestling fans that you can keep the money of. They'd say, well, the money's better in Lyon, France than it is here. And I think.
And to be fair though, I think they can get the best of both worlds because the business is.
Well,
hot.
they are getting. Yeah, they're right now. They're doing that. But it's just this idea of like, hey, if we all show up to Wilkes-Barre and we go really rabid and crazy, they'll come back for SummerSlam. Like that's not how it is. It's up to with the.
It's a money grab. I get it,
yes.
And that's business 101. Like you're trying to make more profits, and I think it's a good thing that they're making.
It's annoying how he's not genuine in that sense of kind of putting up to the fans, but then at the other sense is kind of taunting the fans or touting in front of the fans how much money they made. If you broke an attendance record for a building, tell us all about it, right? Or if this is the highest attended SmackDown, or if you've sold more Cody Rhodes t-shirts than you did Hulk Hogan t-shirts, tell us about it. But don't just say we've made more money, right? Walmart doesn't come out and say, hey, thank you to all the customers. We made more money this year. They might tout something like we served more customers or we sold more of our cakes, and that shows that everyone likes our cakes. But to just say we made more money, especially in an economy like today, well, of course you made more. That's like the gas company saying, we want to thank all the drivers out there. We made more money this year than last year. Well, that's because you charged $1 more a gallon. That's not because we bought more gallons or we drove more or we wanted more gas. It's because you charge more for the product we're already getting. Right? The houses, don't go for the prices that they go for because we really like those houses. They go for those prices because that's what we're being forced to pay for those prices. We're not saying we really like this house so much.
Think of it this way, though, and not to go down another rabbit hole because we do that sometimes. I will say this: with the way the economy is, the cost of normal goods it's gone up. So because of that, WWE, yes,
is going to make more money. Right?
Here's the thing: you're making more money, but the money doesn't go as far because of the crisis that we're in financially with the inflation and everything. So for me, are they making record money? Sure, but if you actually you adjust the numbers for inflation numbers, how much is that really making? How much money are they actually making? That's the real question.
So we'll just end it on this, just essentially like, again, it's the whole pop for the fans, right? Like you say something to the crowd because your idea is to get the crowd amped up. So you told the crowd halfway through the show at Backlash that this show made more money than any other arena show in WWE history, more than any WrestleMania before, WrestleMania 20 at the Garden, WrestleMania 10 at the Garden, WrestleMania 21 at the Staples Center, SummerSlams, every single event, right? Some stadiums like we see in Montreal, 24,000 people can fit in those places. They've broken attendance records, at all these kind of places, the Wells Fargo Center, you name it, right? United Center for SummerSlam 94, right? So, just the idea, though, that you came out and you said, hey, we made more money to get them to pop, essentially, like in something that they don't get to, like, I just think that's something you need to tell your investors, need to tell all your other board of directors that you did that, though. But it's clear and obvious that there was some sort of disconnect with your fanship, if you will, when it comes to saying that an 11,000 arena show, something that's probably worse than the Raw that just happened on Monday night, right, when it comes to actual butts in the seats, made more money than any WWE show in arena history anywhere in the world. Like, that's when people started to click together and go, whoa, whoa, whoa. You're bragging about charging people $600 for a nosebleed seat and telling them like it.
But here's the thing.
Don't do that.
Again,
that's all I'm saying.
I have to play devil's advocate because that makes it for a fun podcast, of course. So my thing is, if people are going to piss and moan about it, then don't pay for the tickets now. Like if you get enough people that are like, you know what, I'm just not going to do it anymore. WWE will eventually be like, oh, shoot, maybe we should
we might. I don't know if we'll see that with Clash of the Castle. I know that it did not sell out as quick as some other shows, right? There's still a couple thousand seats remaining for that show. And specifically, it's actually the better on-TV style seats because those are the ones that are going for, like you say, like $5,000 to see a a what would be a Extreme Rules pay-per-view, right? You're paying $5,000 to go see that. I mean, in any economy, right? You can go back, it doesn't equate, right, to any inflation, right? That's absurd, right? There's most of the crowd, I would say 99% of the crowd did not pay $5,000 to be in the arena at WrestleMania, including many of those who were probably on the floor. So that's an absurd amount of money, regardless, right? So we might see that with Clash of the Castle if obviously those don't sell. And they were just in the United Kingdom last year with Money in the Bank. So this is their return trip essentially for a pay-per-view in what will be back-to-back-to-back years, because they were in Wales, then London, now in Scotland. So we'll see if that demand maybe this time around kind of weans off just a little bit. I'm lucky to say that so far America has kind of shown that, we're still in the same boat. Like, for example, at SmackDown in Wilkes-Barre, there's still seats available. They're not going for $100 to get in the door on StubHub because they're all sold out, right? They charge like $30 for the cheapest ticket, and I think they might even still have one or two left. So that kind of demand is not seen in America yet, because we do come here all the time. The WWE is in America 24/7, so we haven't seen that yet. I'm just saying, again, do what you got to do. I'm not necessarily faulting it because it's a business, but Nike, the NFL, like they say it to the people out there. Hey, this is like the board of directors and the stockholders. They obviously put out their financial things, right? But it's not to the fans essentially to pop. We don't. It shouldn't be an announcement to the fans to get them to clap, right? Because it is not something essentially that they've been a part of, that they get any fruit. They're not leaving there with a free T-shirt. They're not leaving there with a free drink or soda because they accomplished some sort of goal together. The WWE is just announcing their financial, that what they're normally doing in their stockholders meeting. They're just announcing that to a group of people as if like, thank you for making us rich. Thank you. We made these crazy prices out here.
This, though.
I want to thank you for that.
Thank you for giving the company more money to pay our wrestlers that entertain us more money. I'll just leave it.
I don't know if they were necessarily starving. I don't know any WWE stars who left in the current day. WCW, yeah, in the 90s for sure. But I don't know anybody who's saying, I was going to sign with WWE in 2023, but they weren't going to pay, AEW pays more money. I don't know.